Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt
And
Roast.
I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
This is our reaction and review for It Welcome to Derry, Season 1, Episode 1, the
Hmm.
long awaited premiere. Now, for those of you who don't know, this project took forever to come out. We have been hearing about it for years, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that is even more painful if you are a huge fan of the source
Hmm.
material here.
Absolutely. But I mean, they really delivered on this for people who have read the source material or watched the movies and people who haven't. Just for background for me, I started to read the book when I was 15 years old. That was like 35 years ago. And I got so scared by this book that I put it in the freezer and I didn't go back to it. So that's where I am with it. I have not seen the movies. I never went back to the book. I really, really enjoyed this. And I do feel that for people that haven't watched the movies and don't know the source material, I think you're going to be just fine because so far, so good for me.
It's pretty easily accessible. I have seen the movies, full disclosure, additional full disclosure. I'm not afraid of clowns. And that's not me doing this whole tough guy act here. Trust me, if this movie, or I mean, this show was about tarantulas that were shapeshifting, I would be terrified. If it was about LeBron James versus the Toronto Raptors, I would be out of the room petrified. It's just that this Oh,
LeBronto!
no, don't even say Lebronto. Then he
I
just
know.
manifests behind us.
Right?
But I really do enjoy what they did here. Like, my whole access point of
Mhm.
enjoyment from the It franchise is just sort of seeing this expression of fear and what fear looks like for different characters. And just from that alone, they really nailed it in this episode.
The thing that I really like about this is that it gives me a lot of the sort of nostalgic vibes of like a Goonies, something along
Mhm.
those lines, where you have a group of kids that are maybe not as well known actors. I'm not familiar with these actors. So I really am like diving into it where I'm not like, oh, it's that famous person. We've got this
Yes.
group of kids that are really just out here trying to figure out what happened to their friend. Is their friend missing? Is their friend dead? Is something else going on? But I mean, the scare factor in this, oh my God, that whole car scene, I can't.
The car scene was one of the most horrifying things I've seen on television all year.
Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, it's nightmares are coming. Thank you.
Yeah, I it was one of those after I watched, I was like, all right, you guys clearly just want to set this up so that everyone knows what you're going to be delivering week in and week out.
Absolutely. This is not for the faint of heart. This is real, true horror.
All right, well, we have so much more to say about everything that's working about Welcome to
Mhm.
Derry right now, where the story could be heading,
Yeah.
a little bit about Pennywise itself. But before we get into anything more here, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we are going to be here all season long with multiple
Mhm.
Welcome to Derry videos. We have so much good stuff to talk about, and we want you guys to be a part of the discussion. And by subscribing, you're
Mhm.
helping to make sure you just don't miss anything else we've got coming your way.
Absolutely. And we have a lot more coming your way. I mean, Fallout's going to be coming out later this year as
Yes.
well. And we're going to have that here at the channel. And also follow us over on our Patreon. Over there, we're
Mhm.
covering slow horses. And it is the only place that you can get those video reviews. So thank you so much to everyone who has joined.
Thank you guys. We very much appreciate
Yeah.
that. Okay, let's just focus in first and foremost on, you mentioned the kids, you mentioned the
Yeah.
time period.
Yes.
I have a rule that's not official. I just made it up in my brain.
Hmm.
And this is called the Sandlot test because the Sandlot is one of my favorite movies. And I think the
Truly
reason
is.
the reason why I love that movie so much is because the kids are kind of gross, they're crass, they're not appropriate all the time, but they look and act like kids. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of nostalgia wrapped into watching a movie like that because you can kind of see yourself in the characters. And I feel that same way both about the first It movie and about Derry, where you look at these kids, and even though it's a very different time period,
Hmm.
they all still have good qualities. They have emotional elements to them. They feel things that adults can even feel, but they're also still kids. They're reckless, they're irresponsible, they don't always do the right thing.
Yeah, and they don't always say the right thing. And there was a lot of that going on, especially with the Maddie character where,
Mhm.
you know, some of the boys were like, Teddy's like, oh yeah, you know, his mom tried to like pay us in candy to come over. I didn't feel that great about it. The other kid's like, ah, whatever, it's fine. And those are both very real reactions from kids that would be that age. There's no real maturity around any of that, as there wouldn't be. And I know that writing for kids sometimes it does come across that way where there's too much maturity
Yeah.
in kids because it's adults writing for kids, but that's not happening here.
No, it's this really crazy pendulum when it comes to writing kids. It's either they
Yeah.
act just like adults or they just whine constantly and there's nothing else about them. It's
Yeah.
really hard to hit that middle, and I think it's one of the high points of Game of Thrones. I'm only talking about the early seasons here, is that the kids felt believable and they
Mhm.
feel believable here. And that's really the thing. If we're gonna have a show that's got all these over the top visual scares and nightmares,
Mhm.
so much about it in Pennywise is about fear. So we have to understand why these kids are afraid, because otherwise we're just going into full hacky horror. And I don't think a network like HBO wants to be associated with that.
Yeah, and that's what's so scary about the It franchise in general is that it is about feeding into people's fears
Mhm.
and everybody has them. So if you're really unable to fight your
Yeah.
fears, you're done for. And that's really frightening. That's one of the things that always made Freddy Krueger so scary to me
Mhm.
is that you can't escape sleeping. You
No.
will always have to sleep and you will always have to end up fighting Freddy because of it. And here it's a very similar thing. Everybody's got something that they're
Yeah.
afraid of. And, you know, they're really just diving into what is that thing that they are going to hit on. And some of it for these kids is what happened to their friends. So by the time they're in this movie theater and they're really like coming together and trying to figure out, oh man, what happened to Maddie? Like, is he dead? Is he not dead? Is there something that we can do? You hear them talking about what they think their role is in this. Oh man, maybe Lily, oh, maybe I should have kissed him that night, or maybe I shouldn't have just sort of dismissed him, or Teddy being like, oh, maybe we should have hung out with him more. Maybe we should have brought him to the secret hideout a bit more. Maybe we should have treated him a bit better. And that's the fear that it's my fault.
Pennywise is a character who acts on fear, and it comes around every 27 years. And so when you think about that, it's kind of easy to understand this is a great entry point for a character like Pennywise to potentially return, because not only are all these kids afraid, but a lot of that fear stems from something that's very haunting, very traumatic, and visceral. Because losing another kid, a friend, like even when
Yeah.
you're really young, you know that a kid's not supposed to die at that age. It's like
Right.
one of the last things you can ever fathom. So the idea of losing somebody like Maddie when you don't really understand the world yet, it's
Yep.
going to spawn out all of these different possible what if scenarios, all these feelings of guilt, and then the fear that comes from that, the fear of either being left alone, losing another friend, having it happen to yourself. Like, because kids are so imaginative, that's why Stephen King in the first place probably had a field day writing this, because these fears can be bigger and more expressive and graphic.
Yeah, and you can actually get into things like monsters and clowns. And yeah, we haven't seen Pennywise yet in the show. I'm sure he'll be coming at some point, but right now the monster that was the scariest was this like demon baby that was in the car. Like, I mean, the adults were freaky, those kids were freaky. Seeing Maddie in the car trying to escape, unable to, the really weird off things that they were all saying in the car, her giving birth to this demon that's like flying into the back,
Yeah.
flying everywhere, seeing it again in the theater. I mean, like, monster stuff can be really hokey,
Yeah.
but it can also be very scary. And watching it in the theater as it seemingly was killing off some of who I thought were main players in this. Like
Yeah.
Teddy, I don't know how we're not seeing Teddy, Phil gone. Like, are they gone? But it seemed like as this demon baby was killing off the different kids, it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And I think it's all an interesting metaphor that as fear grows, it's harder to kind of put this thing back in the bottle. And
Right.
I mean, one of Pennywise's greatest skills is their ability to just constantly shift and change and reflect fear back on kids. And when kids
Mhm.
are all together fearing something, it makes sense that the monster would only get larger and more terrifying. Everything about the final 5 minutes of this episode, and yeah, I'm still confused with whether or not there's kids are dead or not. But I think regardless of all that,
Lily had somebody's arm.
okay,
Somebody
yes,
is armless or dead.
probably so. But the,
Probably.
the the movie theater setting here is perfect because, especially in this era, you don't have the internet.
Yep.
TV is still very much in its early days.
Hmm.
Like this is the gathering place.
Yep.
And a lot of kids, and they even have this in this first episode with, someone sneaking into the movie theater where they're not supposed to be. It's that you always think you're brave enough to conquer things. And a lot of just fears are born out of movie theaters.
Now, one of the things that I really like that they did is let us really get to know Lily because she does feel like the character that's going to be taking us on a lot of this story. Like, we
Hmm.
got a lot of her background that she lost her dad. She already blames herself for what happened to him, that
Yeah.
he was working at this jarring factory, that she left a toy in there. He went back in to get it for her and was helping somebody else with a machine and thought that he had turned the machine off and got into the machine and it wasn't turned off and he died. And she blames herself for it. She, was getting mental health help for it at a facility. She's still on medication. She's very, very young, dealing with something extremely traumatic. And
Yeah.
now this second thing has happened where this boy really liked her, went to kiss her. She was like, no, I'm not okay with it, sort of thing, which is fine. But now she's pulling that on herself to be like, this is the second time that something like this has happened, where an action that I did has resulted in somebody being dead. Somebody that I care about is gone, missing, or dead. And I mean, her character definitely, it's going to make it interesting because a lot of people are like, oh, she's loony Lily. She's
Yeah.
the person who's crazy. Do we believe anything she's saying? And for her, these things are actually happening. So for
Yeah.
her to try to actually get through to somebody and say that this is really happening when she already has this label on her, I mean, it was really interesting to watch.
She's one of the most interesting characters for a few different reasons. You do have this aspect where she's gone through multiple traumatic events already. And as a kid, because kids make up things all the time, there's
Yep.
always going to be people who side eye her and be like, okay, you're just making this up, you're getting attention. But then this is also where the era comes into play. And I think this is going to be
Mhm.
more and more prevalent as this show goes on, is that being a young woman in this time
Right.
period, women are listened to unfortunately less than men. And
Right.
so you're compounding all of these different things. And so she's going to be instantly judged and instantly mistreated. But this all makes me want to root for her more. Like she is the real point of entry hero at the heart of all of this for me.
Absolutely. I love this character. I'm unfamiliar with this actress, but she's excellent. She's doing a
Yes.
great job of sort of balancing that she is still a kid, but she is a kid that has gone through some very adult
Yeah.
stuff. And the writing for her is really good, where they're not making her too adult, but the things that have happened to her are going to mature her more than other kids.
Where I am getting confused with the movie theater stuff now is just this question of, okay, I am with you. Lily was holding an arm. Like, you can't exactly get away from that part of it.
Yeah, Ronnie saw it. She was holding the
Yeah.
arm. She was holding an arm.
The part where I'm wondering, okay, because kids also, your imagination runs wild. What you see is not always the reality, right? So I'm just like, okay, maybe this is because I don't want to lose Teddy or Phil or both of them this
I know,
early.
right?
I'm just thinking, is there a metaphorical explanation for what we saw? Is it being stretched in her imagination? Is this all wishful delusional thinking?
Okay, I have on my hard hat
All
because
right.
I feel like they killed these kids. And The reason why is because I think this show is going to take really, really big swings where it's like, oh, you thought these were some of the main characters? Nah, sorry. We're, going to take out this one, that one. Very shocking stuff. Like, I think it's easier to think that, oh, okay, they're all going to be fine. Maybe they'll kill off Susie, somebody that we saw for a second, that
Yeah.
it'll be, a C tier kid. That doesn't matter, but not one of the main kids. They would never do that in the first episode. And the idea that they would take out Maddie, take out Teddy, take out Phil, take out Susie, like it's crazy at that point. That's just like, oh my God, is this show that bold and willing to take that kind of a risk at this point to do that? And I feel like, yes.
I think they have it in
I
them
hope.
to do it. I think the
hope.
real situation here with Welcome to Derry is that because this is a show that's a part of a larger universe, but not necessarily like so stringently connected to the movies
Yep.
that you can kind of do whatever you want with a lot of these kids.
Yes.
Because you get to the later material, they're not sitting around and talking about every single person under the sun. Like they're dealing with their own Pennywise problem at that point.
Absolutely.
So everything I think with the kids in this first episode is really, really strong. We
Yep.
get all of these different perspectives. I think
Mm-hmm.
even the character of Ronnie, who is not around a lot, but she's somebody who brings a very distinct point of view where, being a young Black person at that time and all of the problems that come with that. I mean, it's pretty clear the producers are going to be taking a look at a lot of this stuff, and time period wise, this is what the movies couldn't do because it was set so far down the road.
Well, the other thing about, Ronnie, she really was one of the last people to not only just see Maddie,
Mhm.
but help him get out of the theater. And
Yeah.
then he, gets into that car and dies? Like, she may be carrying that around with her as well.
So if there's one part of the premiere I'm still a little bit torn on and kind of working through my feelings, it is everything that's going on at the base at this point.
1,000%. I am not interested in it at all at this point.
It's difficult because I wanted to be interested in Polly because everything that ties into Korea, my grandfather fought in Korea, and I think it is a part of history,
Mhm.
especially when you kind of think about what happened before, what happened after, that does tend to get a little bit forgotten. Like, I appreciate what they're trying to go with there, and because this is an 8-episode show, they do have to fill this out, give more subplots, not everything can be CGI sequences and scares every minute.
Yeah, I think my worry is because it's like, okay, these two guys are now here on this base. Oh, don't look over there. That's like the
Yeah.
special area where the secret things are going on. I'm just kind of like, I don't want it to end up being that like Pennywise and everything that's kind of going on there is something that they're studying and that they're figuring out and that they've got, something going on. It makes it much more terrifying when people can't get any sort of control over this. Like, I feel like there's got to be a connection to whatever is going on behind the curtain
Yeah.
is connected to whatever is growing and coming back with Pennywise.
It's an interesting thing to think about, and I feel like this show, it has to do something to justify its existence. And what I mean by that, it's not a spoiler to sit here and say that Pennywise is around in the It movie, so obviously Pennywise
Right.
makes it through this show, but how does that happen? And then what do people, i.e. adults, learn about Pennywise
Right.
along the way? I'm very curious to see how they do that because there's only so much you can do without like completely disrupting canon.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is if this base is doing something where they are studying it or they have information on it, or maybe they have other kids that have, been fed into the fears of Pennywise and they've got them there and they've been studying it, like how long then has the military been doing that?
Yeah, and this is something that Stephen King loves to dive into with a lot of his source
Yes.
material, these broader questions of what do people know and why are they hiding it from all of
Yep.
us. So that part of the show needs a little bit of work. The time period itself though is perfect. Like we've touched on a lot of it already, but
Yeah.
everything from the look of the houses to how community celebrations tend to be sort of blown over the top to
Mhm.
even certain things like the Music Man. I remember watching the Music Man when I was a kid, and I grew up way later than this time period, but it does really suck you in, and it is of a specific time that it sort of makes me feel like, okay, these kids would be talking about it. They would be experiencing it. It feels like there was just a lot of research done on a lot of the finer details here.
Yeah, especially that choice of movie where there was a lot of that theme within this premiere as well. Just sort
Yeah.
of like, what can you talk about? What are things you can say? What things are no, no, naughty things? Even in the car with Maddie, where you have the mom turn back to her young kid and was just like, oh, you're a harlot. All of a sudden, I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, but they have those themes already. And then we're dealing with these young kids who are also trying to figure that out. What's appropriate, what's not appropriate for that time period and that age.
I think big picture here, what HBO is trying to do with Welcome to Derry is take the horror genre and elevate it to typical HBO standards, which means,
Yep.
good acting, good
Yes.
performances, trying to find a reason to explain why did we need this show. And so
Mhm.
far, they're really delivering on a lot of it. It's really hitting the history really well. There's an
Mhm.
opportunity this season to dive really deep into the history of Pennywise,
Yep.
all the different generations that have been a part of all of that, but also really take your time to get to know these characters because typically in a horror film, you maybe have an hour and a half, 2 hours, not like it chapter two, which is almost 3 hours, but it's just you don't have the time to explore these people because that makes it all the more scary when the monstrous stuff does happen.
Yes, and that is why I am hoping that they did take the really big swing in that theater. And even though I don't want to lose Teddy and Phil, especially Teddy, what an interesting character. I don't want to lose them, but I do want to see this show take a huge swing right out the gate so that I go into the next episodes and I'm like, Lily's not safe, Ronnie's not safe, nobody is safe. They can quickly switch in different people at any point, that none of these kids are actually safe.
But that is where we are with the premiere of Welcome to Derry. We
Mhm.
are so curious to hear from you guys. What did you think about the premiere? What do you think really worked about it? Do you like this new generation of kids? Are you going to get on board with them much in the way you might have the Losers Clubs if you like the movies? Like, let us know in the comments and hit that subscribe button for more coverage. And you can support
Mhm.
us further by joining our Patreon. That link is in the description. Thank you so, so much for your support, and we'll see you here next time.